Now, it is time for the chief minister to provide a report and commit it to our committee. Thank you. The last motion for today is motion 5.
Please, my regard.
Moderator for motion 5, you are invited to the stage. Thank you.
Final debate session. Once again, my name is Cambodia and I will moderate this important discussion. The motion is distance learning should be made compulsory in Asia during the COVID-19 pandemic. I may now invite the government and opposition team to introduce themselves.
Hello and Minglava to everyone. My name is Tensation Lasso. I'm from Myanmar, representing Mandalay University. I'm from the government side. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yang Manik, a junior student majoring in international relations at Royal University of Phnom Penh and the law student at the Royal University of Law and Economics. I will be the Deputy Prime Minister and the reply speech. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sen Wei, and I'm from Singapore, representing the Singapore Institute of Technology. My role today will be the government whip for the government team. Thank you.
Hello, selamat malam everyone. My name is Tuan Ismara bin Tuku Ismara. I'm from Malaysia, and I'll be the leader of opposition. There's sure a lot more audiences than before now, which is very good. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's have a fun debate today. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and friends. My name is Peg, study majoring in chemical engineering, representing opposition team, and yeah, thank you.
Greeting esteemed judge and audience. My name is Pom Sarai Sakana. In today's debate, I will be the opposition whip, and I am proudly representing Cambodia and AUPP Debate Society. Thank you.
Let us now begin the debate. Firstly, I would like to invite the Prime Minister, the first speaker of the government team, to deliver the opening statement and first argument. Thank you.
Testing. Let me start in 3, 2, 1. A couple of years ago, COVID-19 struck globally and we are still struggling to get through. ASEAN member states have devised contextualized solutions. Distance learning is one of these. Through video conferences and open scheduled online courses, distance learning can be well functioning without physical contact. Distance learning has started in 18th century. It's definitely yes. Distance learning is one of the perfect accuracy that should be made controversy. 3 approaches to claim. First, policies and projects which are actually working for learning asset. Second, the importance of such policies and projects to promote and protect human rights. Third, without technologies or with low technologies, it can be possible for distance learning. Again, some obstacles for the implementation of sustainable education at national, regional level and worldwide. Obviously, we need advanced technology, but it's not the end. Sharing of technologies to diplomatic relations will reduce the cost of digital learning. broadcasting through radio and televisions will affect in the place of lack of internet access. Therefore, it can work in both developed and developing countries. Through this, we can fulfill the right to education of every child. Let me give 2 reasons for compulsory assessments of distance education. Point 8. This is not short-term fixes. It must be sustainable beyond all kinds of crises like natural disaster. Plan B. It would be able to decrease the expense of every student. In UK project Gigabit, the government through public-private partnerships subsidized the cost of installing broadband in rural and hard-to-reach areas. This has given the assurance of educational opportunity to everybody. For developing countries with some barriers for nationwide internet access, educational programs broadcasted through television and radio channels must be functional. In Myanmar, national media like MLTV and Myawaddy usually broadcast educational programs, for example, lecture of matriculation examinations. These are kinds of distance learning. Countries in Southeast Asia should collaborate through ASEAN to have contemporary distance learning programs for sustainable education through projects of public-private partnership, broadcasting educational program, and managing market system of digital device. We need education every day to secure individual rights and national interests, including regional interest. One vision, one community, one identity. Together we share technologies and platforms for distance learning, and together we learn for our development in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear the response from the opposition team. The first speaker of the opposition side will represent the rebuttal and opposing case.
Okay, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Panels, the only thing that we on side opposition can agree with side government is that yes, distance learning is a good option for people to have the right of education in the midst of the pandemic. But again, that is not the case, the real issue of the problem in this motion. That is not the root issue. We are not arguing about distance learning is good or bad, or is it better or worse. But the real issue here is compulsory. The government here is trying to make sure that everyone, every country in ASEAN, make sure that it's a compulsory policy, and make sure that each of the nation adopt this as a policy that is forced on them. Right? So why again on the compulsory? Because again, the government has neglected to look into the environments of ASEAN nation as a whole. Right? We can see that ASEAN nations is composed of like 10 member nations with diverse and vibrant backgrounds, and a huge population of a huge demographic of this all 10 member nation. The commonality is that we still have a significant amount of rural people, right? A significant amount of people who live in poverty. So even if you mention that we don't use the digital internet and whatnot, we use TVs and radios. Still, where for what? For the families that don't have radios and TVs, where are they going to get them? Do they have to buy them, or will the government spend resources that are needed to fight the pandemic to provide them with TVs and radios and whatnot? Again, so we must pay attention to the rural area. There's a significant amount of them within the ASEAN itself, and so we on state opposition propose a better way, an alternative, which is instead of making a mandatory policy, a blanket policy on all Asian nation, we use the Asian way, which is to allow the self-judgment of each nation of what is the best course of action for their individual and their capability, and allow them to take that into their own hand and matter, instead of forcing them to follow a one for all, one fit for all policy. right? So the burden of proof that we place on the side of government here is simple. Two things. Prove to us first the necessity of a compulsory mandate, and second, the feasibility, the realisticity, the practicality of a compulsory mandate. That is all. Now, on our first point of the government, of the opposition side, is on equal accessibility. The government argued on how, if we allow this motion to pass, then people will have access more towards education and whatnot, and it will be good. But no, that is not the case. Again, I question them on the Asian infrastructure. Are we ready in terms of digital infrastructure? Does all members in ASEAN has full internet coverage to rural areas and whatnot? Do every students in ASEAN have laptops, have computers, and have technologies and whatnot? No. But who will suffer from this motion if it passes? The poor and rural people, those who come from lower income family, those who are from rural areas, those who have who still live in poverty. And I ask you panels, if we pass this motion, how is it fair for these people who are already underprivileged to gain education? We are taking away their only opportunity, the only way to get them out of the environment from under their feet. So how is this a position for them for the right of education to all people when millions will suffer because of this, right? The UDHR Article 26, AHRD Article 31, and Convention on the Rights of the Child, ratified by all members of ASEAN, all focus and emphasize on children's right to get education, and the government is taking away from this. Now, panels, the youth is our future. I'll ask you a question. If we take away millions of education from millions of them, then who will become our leaders? Who will become our scientists, engineers, and doctors? Right? Who will guide our nation in the future? The virus does not discriminate, so our response to it shouldn't either. That's all from me. Thank you. Proud to oppose.
Next, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, the second Speaker of the government team, to deliver the counter argument and second point.
I will begin my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Good afternoon, esteemed judge, and also respective opponents. Before moving to my argument, I would like to counter-argument on the first speaker of the opponent. He mentioned at the beginning, he mentioned about it is about the rural area, they face the inequality. But at the end of the day, why he introduced the ASEAN way, the model of one fit to all ASEAN member, which is require physical attention when it is a pandemic, COVID-19. People cannot go out from home. People have to stay home in order to prevent themselves from disease. Do you expect everyone to get out in order to fully participate in the ASEAN way that even make the disease become spread more and more and lose a lot of people's life more and more? Esteemed judge and also respective audience, our Prime Minister have mentioned that we introduced the policy that aim to mitigate all the inequality that exists due to the unequal access to all those digital devices. For example, the policy of including nationwide internet access for students, media collaboration through TV, and also with the radio and the physical library project as well. For example, in the case of Indonesia, Ministry of Education require distance learning where television, radio, not just solely rely on the internet, which have the 85% of the whole population, especially the students, to access to education. And in the case of the Philippines, pass on the learning contributing plan, constitutionally granted the using printed module, which is basically free, and also it's based on paper, not based on the internet for the learner. And this is the collective action that the ASEAN community try to solve. If the opponent side try to ignore this, which means that the opponent ignore the collective effort of the ASEAN. And moving to this, the second argument, we argue that education during the pandemic through the distance learning or e-learning, more than just preserving school, it actively promotes human rights. Under the Article 26 of UDHR, Article 31 paragraph 1 and Article 31 paragraph 2 of the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration constituted that education is a compulsory, and especially for children. And during the COVID-19, during the pandemic, education shall remain consistent at the same time upholding with the value of right to health, digital safety, and also protection on the children that will be elaborated furthermore by my teammate. And For the example, in the report in 2020 of the Southeast Asian Ministry of Education Organization also acknowledged the importance of digital learning that are advancing the learning method and also that closely aligned to the Article 26 of the UDHR as well. Everyone, stand with us for upholding human rights, support distance learning during the difficult time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I now invite the deputy opposition side, the second speaker of the opposition team, to respond with their rebuttal and counter position. Thank you.
Testing. Great. Your Honor, during COVID-19, some people really enjoy distance learning because it's really comfort. Imagine turning off your light, mood, don't have to turn on video, everybody enjoy. One of them is me. But note that this is a privilege. Just because one can achieve this doesn't mean millions or 80% of rural and community in Cambodia can achieve such thing. Two things we want to address on side proposition, right? So the entire claim of the entire creating the model of them is that, okay, we have a better way. Let's print it like broadcast. The question here is compulsory is what you must define and defend in your stance. They somehow dilute the word compulsory into something that really merely like being addressed in their speech. For example, the compulsory here means you have to do it regardless of what. If you don't do it, you will be punished for it. That's why we say it's not accessible to a lot of people who don't have accessibility to internet, to phone, or to anything like that. And you say that, oh, the government will provide this and provide that. Remember, the motion mentioned clearly that we are in pandemic. What has to be cared for in the pandemic? Healthcare, vaccine, you don't spend on those things. Here is the second argument of why compulsory learning undermines quality education. This motion debates on who can provide a better education for students during COVID-19. Here I'm going to give you two layers of analysis. One, learning isn't just looking at the screen. It's also about interacting, hands-on practice, explanation. Imagine you study physics, math. Can you do that by printed? Can you do that without someone who actually dare to teach you? That is why we told you in our side, we still prioritize health for people. But let's say not make distance learning compulsory. You can join it, you can opt it for a different way, or you can make a hybrid, a blended learning. Maybe smaller class, maybe wearing masks, maybe hand sanitizer, all proving to be working to contain contagious disease. Secondly, is how it look like, is that how distant learning look like for a majority of people. When we talk about accessibility in education, we cannot just talking about people who have the money to afford it. Privilege is still the real thing, and side opposition don't want that. Here's how it actually look like, judges. One, rural students don't have access to it. Second, disabled people or students have difficulty in listening, interpretation, someone who assists them at real place. How could they get good education through that? Thirdly, is that young girl. This might be a unique perspective, but hear me out. Younger in Cambodia, mostly in rural or poorer family, they can only become a student where they are physically at school. Why? At home, their parents would think that, oh, they have nothing to do, so you should do the chore. Watch out for your sister and brother. Maybe do this, maybe do that. Distant learning doesn't stop them from being that way. So the only time the girl can truly actually get a quality education is when she at school. And now make it compulsory. Their parents don't want to buy phone for them and just say, let's just drop out. And this is real because according to the ASEAN United Nations for their report, they say that the first thing that you should do when there's a pandemic, make sure that the last resort is close to school and making this social distance, distant learning a compulsory, because at the end of the day, it's still not what majority of people can afford. So at the end, if the price of stand for equality education is being called the ignorant, we take that price and I'm begging you to oppose.
Moving forward, I welcome the government with the first speaker of the government team to present the third agreement and provide a summary of the case of
I shall start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable Chair, esteemed judges, and fellow delegates. First of all, I would like to clarify the definition of distance learning. Distance learning is a process of education in which a student learns at least part of the project through electronic media. And for the government's point of view, we are not blocking access towards education, and we are not punishing any state that does not make education compulsory throughout a pandemic. This debate is about whether ASEAN will allow a pandemic to rob our entire generation of its future. The government shows that compulsory distance learning is the only way to keep education alive and safe. Meanwhile, the opposition paints that the distance learning is, first of all, flawed, unequal, and difficult. But the alternative is silence, leaving students behind with nothing. The clash is clear. Will ASEAN act with courage to protect both lives of our students as well as learning, or abandon its youth to education darkness? So the government stands on mainly three key pillars. First of all, necessity. Schools spread infection. To keep them open during COVID is like to play with fire. Secondly, continuity. Without it, millions of students will fall behind, deepening inequality and scarring ASEAN's future. Last but not least, feasibility. From TV classes in Indonesia to subsidized laptops in SG, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for all states. ASEAN has proven that it can adapt and change. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not about perfection, but it's about the survival with dignity. Moving on, the deputy leader of opposition argued that digital divide makes it unfair. But unfair to what? Leaving millions with no education at all? Compulsory distance learning at least sets a baseline with government stepping in through subsidies, radios and TVs and other much more solutions that we can consider. They say that mental health suffers through online fatigue is real, but isolation and complete education collapse are worse. They say that infrastructure is not ready. But hey guys, readiness is forged in crisis. Progress never comes by waiting. The opposition is clinging on to excuses while the government is offering solutions. Now, let me add one further argument. Compulsory distance learning fosters regional resilience and accelerates ASEAN digital transformation. The pandemic should be seen not just as a disruption, but as a turning point for us. By making distance learning compulsory, ASEAN invests in future-proofing our education systems in line with the ASEAN Digital Master Plan 2025, which calls for tech to close the digital divide and enable digital society within all ASEAN nations. During COVID, the Philippines launched the DepEd Commons to reach millions, and Singapore distributed devices to every single student. This measure shows that compulsion drives innovation and inclusion, leaving no one behind. This policy doesn't just safeguard education, but it also transforms adversity into opportunity. It builds a more resilient ASEAN where no child is left denied to the right to learn and where our education systems are future-proof against crises to come. Honourable judges, the opposition has failed to give an alternative. They have hid behind criticism but proposed nothing to keep the education learning alive. They exaggerated challenges but ignores ASEAN's proven capacity to adapt. They forgot that leadership in crisis is not just about acting through crisis is about acting despite difficulty and not just retrenching because of it. Meanwhile, the government has proven that we save lives by reducing infection, we save futures by providing protection, and we seize opportunities by driving ASEAN digital transformation. So today, let me pose you guys a question. In the pandemic or in a crisis in the near future, do we abandon education or do we rise and adopt and protect our youth? Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from the opposition. Does the Speaker of the opposition to move a rebut and strengthen the opposition position? Let's give them a round of applause.
Testing. Testing. I would like to begin my speech now. Honorable Chair, the government tried to tell us that compulsory distance learning is the only way to protect education during the crisis, which is COVID-19. But the problem is their solution left millions of ASEAN students behind. We in the opposition, we are not against education, nor do we think that it's unimportant. In fact, we fight for it as much as the government do, but the difference is that our approach is realistic and actually feasible. We stand for inclusivity, practicality, and fairness. Today, I will not prove to you why their model failed, but present an alternative solution that truly protects the right to education for all students, not just the privileged. Next, I would like to move on to framing then, since the first speaker failed to do so. So on today's debate, motion stated that ASEAN countries should make distance learning compulsory. So what does compulsory look like? It is a mandatory for student or institute, for instance, to putting online class, and it looked like attendance should be on the same level as physical class and submitting their work through online platform. And if they don't do so, there will be penalty or a fail. The whole point of today's debate is to test whether compulsory is better than flexibility. If government try to define compulsory is the same as flexibility, then I shouldn't be here to debate. I should be at home sleeping, right? Because there's no clash and there's no debate. Now, again, I would like to say that we are not against education. What we are against is the compulsory policy that they try to propose. Now let's move on to rebuttal then. The first speaker tried to talk about new technology and digital program will ensure continuity on education. But I would like to ask a question. On what ground, on what technology, on what device? Sure, it worked, but only for the privileged student. But what about the rural and the poor student? Will you provide for it too? And let's say if you do so, but what resources? During the time of crisis, resources are being allocated into like vaccine and stuff. If your side of the house grow money on tree, then maybe it worked. Now, rebuttal on fairness and access. Government say that through compulsory online learning ensure fairness, but UNESCO reported that half of students globally have no computer and many ASEAN lack internet. So by forcing online study was not fairness, it was just exclusion only. And now let's, on argumentation then, our side of the house, third argument is the better alternative. So instead of making it compulsory, ASEAN should have a flexible multi-platform educational model. So what does it look like? It looked like A, radio and TV broadcast, cheap and accessible use across Cambodia, Laos, and the Philippines under reach to students without internet. The Gov also proposed this too, but the difference is, on our side of the house, we let states decide and adapt flexibility through their own ability, resource, and contact, while the government forced compulsion. It also looked like we can provide printed learning package to the student. We blend safe reopening, and we provide teacher support to check up on student. This wasn't theory, it was ASEAN reality. The evidence shown that ASEAN leadership prioritize flexibility, inclusivity, and health simultaneously. We in opposition never abandon education. We just fight for it in a more flexible way. So proud to oppose this motion.
As we approach the conclusion, I kindly invite the opposition reply, the opposition team to summarize their case. Thank you.
I will start my speech now. All right. Human rights are not reserved for you or for me. Human rights are not reserved for the government, nor anyone, especially. But human right, those included education, is for everyone. That's not my word. That is the word of His Excellency, Edmund Bonchai-soon, who is opening his remark this morning. I noted that. Maybe I called his name wrong, but that's the point. Equality to education should be for everyone. Side proposition giving you a picture that their government care. But one thing they fail to do in this debate is that how they're going to make things compulsory. So that is why, as an opposition, I'm going to give you three clash points of why side opposition take this debate. Firstly, it's on accessibility. We told you that education on our side is not being ignored, but somehow it's being redesigned. For example, blended versions. Maybe some reconciling, turning to a smaller class. Maybe people can wear masks or sanitizations, sit far away from each other. That's all implemented in Cambodia in real life, and it's shown to work. But for their side, they say, let's not do that, and they're trying to prioritize public health by saying that make it compulsory, people will not go outside. And this is why we think make it compulsory is not accessible for everybody, but our side, it's make it accessible for everyone. We take on accessibility. Now, they talk about public health, so let's do that. Public health, right? On their side, people not go outside so virus can spread. But how do they know that compulsory policy actually works? Send in material, giving stuff to children. Do you have an angel on their shoulder to make sure they study? I don't think so. And how could you make sure that that was actually compulsory and work? And judges, make it compulsory and not allowing students to go to school doesn't stop them from going to places that have Wi-Fi. Do you think students want to spend hours and money of their cellular data? They probably go to a nearby cafe and go to somewhere that they can enjoy this study. This is not a social distancing debate. This is how we're going to provide a better education during a time of crisis. And we say say on side opposition, we're providing you an alternative in the way that it works. And from side proposition, they did give you, say that make it compulsory and different way, but your way don't work. And people still go outside, and that is real. And thirdly then, is on the final clash is on who can provide a more structural reform or like better recovery for people. We saying that the reason we keep talking about equality education, quality education, accessibility, because majority of people still need that. Why do we actually want education during crisis in the first place? Government still providing education because at the end of the day, human resource is still needed. But if you make a half-baked policy and make it compulsory but not care whether the student learn or not, just make it compulsory, submit your attendance, does that still achieve the goal that the government want? Exactly not. And outside we say that if you truly prioritize for education, why don't opt for something hybrid, better, accessibility to everybody and also protecting public health? We're showing you that it actually works. But if you keep saying that, oh, ASEAN do that, we say that ASEAN have different severity of pandemic, and people then they should have the right to implement it how they see fit for that country. And that is why judges, I am never been so proud to oppose.
Finally, to close the debate, I invite the government reply, the government team to deliver the concluding summary.
Testing. I will start my speech in 1, 2, 3. Dear esteemed judge and also respective opponents. So before moving to the final conclusion of our debate today, I would like to address on what is distance learning. One of my teammates, he also mentioned that distance learning is referred to the learning process that at least one of the assessment can be done through electronic device. The term at least here, which means that in one education system, we still have many, for example, we have 10 tasks that are assigned by our professor. So which means that at least we can only submit one through the electronic device or one that have to be done through the electronic device. So that's the definition that the opponent side may overlook and always say that we are trying to make it compulsory and make it a penalty for those who do not follow with the law. And one more thing, concerning on the term compulsory, it means that something that must be done and necessary by law. All the ASEAN member states, they show their commitment by ratifying the UDHO and also the ratify the ASEAN Charter. Under the Article 31 of the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, they stated that education is a compulsory. So therefore, we have to keep the education alive even though it is a pandemic. We have to keep it consistently alive. And one more thing, the second speaker of the opponent side, he also mentioned about the case of Cambodia. Maybe he may overlook on the statistic they provided by the government that the Ministry of Education, it is one of among the top 5 that the government will allocate the budget, which means that the top 5 ministry priority that the government allocate the budget for this ministry in order to advance in the education system. Yes, and he might overlook on this part. And one more thing concerning the attack of the students themselves. If they I also do not completely deny on the flexible model that introduced by the third speaker of the opponent side, but at the same time, we have to clearly that education, it is involved with a lot of stakeholders, teacher, government, school, and also parent. If the student or the parent cannot solely rely on the school to help their children to study. So if the student they don't want to study, it is the obligation of the parent or the stakeholder have the responsibility to ensure that the children go to school and learn, not just rely on one main actor, which is teacher. And therefore, I would like to conclude my argument that the first, we consist of the policy that access to the mandatory through digital and distance learning. Second, we firmly believe and strongly propose with a policy that uphold with the human right integrity and under the spirit of ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. And last but not least, it is about the digital literacy and the ASEAN Digital Master Plan 2025 that not only Cambodia but ASEAN as the whole looking forward to in the future. Strongly opposed. Thank you so much.
Thank you to both teams for your constructive agreements. We now proceed to the question and answer session with our active debaters. Judges, may I kindly ask you to keep each question under 15 seconds. Debater, you will have up to 2 minutes to respond and 45 seconds to discuss before answering the questions. We will ensure that both teams receive equal opportunity to answer. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for both teams. You are a great team. I do have questions. One question for oppositions and one question for governments. But I would request opposition to answer my question first. So, by opposing a compulsory policy, what is your long-term strategy for ensuring quality educational resilience in the face of the future pandemic, for example, like COVID-19 or other widespread crises that necessitate remote learning? And also a question to the government's team. We accept that there is a lot of poor or vulnerable children in the rural area. So my question would be, if you know that a student from a very poor family could not afford a device, computer, tablet or phone, something like that, for online learning, would you still argue that distance learning should be compulsory? Knowing it might be exclude them from education entirely. Thank you.
Do you need the flag now? Alright, thank you very much to the panels for the question. So basically, I will reiterate the question is basically asking, if we don't support mandatory distance learning now, how are we going to have our education system be ready for the upcoming, maybe potential pandemics in the future? Alright, so I will answer this in two parts, right? First, I will explain the current necessity of why we have to go with what we do now, right? So the motion itself was how or why not distance learning should be made compulsory in ASEAN during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the base of this motion here today is made during the COVID-19 pandemic situations, the environments, the resources, the capabilities, the readiness of ASEAN members during that time. And this is why that we on the side position, we focus and emphasize that if we look at the time of a COVID-19 pandemic, then yes, ASEAN is not ready. We are not ready for a pandemic on that scale. And also we don't have a digital coverage, digital infrastructure yet in place because it happened in a surprise. And so that's why we supported a hybrid approach, meaning that while we do support and encourage distance learning, we don't make it compulsory for some of the countries, some part of the areas where they can't participate in compulsoriness of the distance learning. So we give them a flexibility. That is always the Asian part of way of doing stuff, the flexibility of doing stuff in their own way while also doing stuff or how we suggested it. But for the future, this is the second part of the answer, for the future, then I'm proud and happy to tell you that since learning from the COVID-19 pandemic, for what had happened to us and how unprepared and how ready we are, the ASEAN has already drafted policies and whatnot. One of it is called ASEAN Policy on Safe Reopening and Learning Recovery, which is basically this is the lessons that we have learned from COVID-19. So if COVID-20, COVID-21 happen in the future, then we'll be more prepared for it. We now know that we have to digitalize our country, digitalize our infrastructures and whatever, so that even if a pandemic comes, then these poor people, these underprivileged people can also partake in education. Thank you very much.
to address your question, sir. So we believe that. So maybe let me just share a saying. As the government of all of our ASEAN member states, I feel that we all have the same sentiments that, as the saying goes, we don't want to give our students a fish, but we want to teach our students how to fish in order for them to sustain long term. In terms to address your point that if let's say a student is unable to afford a digital device, would we still impose compulsory distance learning? The answer is yes, because learning is not just a short-term journey. It's a lifelong journey that lasts through each and every individual one of us through lifetime. And the thing I want to highlight is that actually there's no point of giving someone with, let's say a student with iPad, if he does not know how to use the iPad. Hence, the government understands the discrepancy in terms of the different levels of digital literacy across the different ASEAN member states. So with that, we would like to propose a solution, which is basically we classify these groups of people into three types of literacy level in terms of digital skills. First of all, high tech. So for the high tech students, maybe we could provide them with access to like learning portals or e-learning where their lectures and online classes could be held online instead. For the low-tech students, we can seek for alternatives such as telecommunications in the form of TV and radio, where they can watch their classes through the television, and the schools can broadcast that throughout the nationwide. Then for the no-tech students, which there's no point of them handing them a digital device if they don't know how to use it. First of all, we will propose to start with like physical books and physical materials, because this is the basis of learning, and this will help them to build a foundation in order for them to level up from no tech to low tech and last but not least high tech. So all in all, the government's our point is basically to impose a sense of urgency and to further elevate the digital literacy of all our students in all ASEAN member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations to all our debaters. May you aspire to be leaders of your society and to be strong advocates for human rights. I am Graciela Okit-Dami from the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines, and my first question goes to the government side. How does your policy mitigate the mental health impacts of prolonged screen time and social isolation among children or students? Again, how does your policy mitigate the mental health impacts of prolonged screen time and social isolation among children or students? To give fairness, I will state my question for the opposition later, so that you have same time to prepare.
Thank you so much for your wonderful question. So to address into your question, we also have the same concern regarding to the mental health and also isolation of the children when they are facing with the screen for so long hours. So, but so far the greater harm come from the isolation and illness and not mainly come from the screen time, which means that there are other factors. For example, this can be family and also social pressure as well. And for the distance learning, they provide a routine which teacher contact and provide the information to the community, and all the students, they will have the interaction in the community, for example in the Telegram channel, in the WhatsApp or Discord or the Google Classroom, which are vital and sure during the crisis. But and the government, in response to this, the government can also limit the screen time. For example, limit the age for the screen time. For example, the children under 5 or 6 years old, I don't think that they have the sufficient fundamental knowledge enough in order to use the phone to access into the online class. And most of the time, all of them will be sent to the kindergarten school that will be taken care directly by the nanny or that have the physical effect, not just let them have like long hour on the screen. And one more thing, the government can limit the screen time, diversify platform, for example, radio, TV, and instead of phone, and support parents with their well-being check-in as well. And without a compulsory system, students can risk falling into like a depression, early dropout, or even the child labor that can be leading to exploitation in the market. And for the impact, we can say that the structural learning is not just about the grade; it is about the safeguard the dignity, development, and well-being of the ASEAN child. And last but not least, one word to answer to your question. It is about the collaboration with all the stakeholders, especially for parents, for the young children to safeguard their well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you. For the opposition side, how does your stance account for the health risks for immunocompromised students
and teachers if we will have a continue face-to-face learning without strong digital alternatives? Again, how does your stance account for the health risk to immunocompromised students and teachers if we will continue face-to-face learning without strong digital alternatives?
I don't even know why I have so many paper. Okay, great question, judges. So how do we account for teacher or student who might potentially, we can somehow causing more harm than good? So in our side here, we don't say that either compulsory distant learning or never learning at all. That is why we say in our side, if you opt for not wanting to go to school because you feel like you might somehow spread the disease or you fear of the disease, you can take it home, but you can take the distant learning at home, but it doesn't have to be compulsory. So you might ask, if you don't make it compulsory, then how you make sure the student actually learn? Well, that question can also ask to side proposition. If you make it compulsory, even though, how could you make sure that they still learn? But at least in our side, we can separate classes in a way that, okay, if you are the most vulnerable group, because pandemic have its severity and level, not like pandemic, boom, everybody is like contagious. So if nation in ASEAN, it has a different level of severity, you can design the models accordingly. Let's say in Cambodia, when it was at a lower level, student classes still opening in hybrid way. You can go to school 3 days per week, and the other 3 days is at home, you're submitting stuff. But that is not compulsory. Teacher is not, he was like, oh, you're late, you are not doing this, you're going to be punished for that. Because students can still opt to go to school. Their parents also have a say in this. If they want to take their children to school, they can. Again, our side still supporting education. We just say make it compulsory. It's just forcing the people who already have burden like poverty or inaccessibility, make that even harder for them. But if we allow them to have the choice to choose, it was better. And that is why, judges, we think that in the way that we can proposing on oppositions, even though we don't need advanced technology, actually we don't actually need a lot of technology. We just need to say that if you have the technology to do it, please don't make it compulsory for people, because some people don't have the luxury to make it compulsory for them. And we say it's actually true. And one more thing is that if what we truly care in this debate is the public health or spread of the disease, we have to actually take time to redefine and redesign our model, because we cannot just simply say, oh, I don't want disease to spread, so let's make it compulsory. That is just a lazy way to not actually want to do something. And our side, we say we do the hard work for you. Thank you.
Congratulations both teams for your nice presentation. And I'm from Ministry of Education, and I have 2 questions, one for each team. The first one will go to the government team, because education is not like a single aspect, not just equipped with the only knowledge, but skills and attitude. So during the you argue for distance learning. So how do you, in your opinion, how do you manage to cover the missing part? I mean the skill and attitude if you provide the distance learning. For the opposition team, it's also a hard job for you as well. It's related to the students who are falling behind. So in your idea, what your mechanism or strategy to provide assistance to students who are falling behind during the COVID-19 if you are not if you are support the physical learning. Yes. Thank you.
We now invite the debaters to answer the question.
To answer your questions, I would like to repeat your question again. So your question concerning the loophole that distance learning might face, for example, the skill and aptitude that might be not complement on the knowledge. So for this part, I would like to say that in-person class are stronger because people, or especially students, they can have the interactions. But during the pandemic or crisis, distance learning, it is a mechanism. For the term mechanism here, it is not mean that it is a way or procedure that we do it for a long-term mechanism. It's just a tool or that introduced for a short period of time, can be 2-3 years, especially during the pandemic. Like we can say COVID-19 only lasts around like few years. But we don't really want to risk the danger and safety of our children. It will be the question. So that's why we introduce the distance learning in the pandemic. And for the skill and attitude, mostly they influenced by the people around the children themselves. For example, children may spend approximately only 8 hours outside of the home or at school with the teachers, while the rest of the 24 hours they stay with their parents most of the time. So which means that it is the obligation of the parents in order to safeguard their children's behavior, to ensure that they can become a good person with a good well-being, and not to put pressure only on parents, but also the other stakeholders, for example, teacher and the environment as well, which we require like public-private partnership in order to ensure that when the students they grow old, they have the environment that's safe for them, not to pressure them and to become a bad person in the society. And one last sentence that I can answer to your question is that a short-term compromise avoid long-term collapse, which means that it is a mechanism just for a short term. So we try to make it survive, but do not collapse for the long term. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you, Judge, for your question. But first, to answer that question, I would like to bite the bullet that not every student will learn perfectly during the COVID-19. But to be honest, even in normal time without the COVID-19 pandemic, some students choose to not even care or to not even study. But for the one who actually wants to study, the one who is actually enthusiastic to learn, they can actually follow up with our model, the one that is not compulsory. So with our model, it actually have accessibility to the rural and the poor student as well. So what does it look like? It look like there is a proven tool in ASEAN. Countries such as Philippines and Indonesia use radio and TV effectively during lockdown, and millions of students were reached, even the rural one, much more without internet, right? And two, there is a policy that that have teacher checkup and community support. Like, we're not just handing out printed material and handing out paper. Teacher follow up with messages, phone call, and community drop off, like point for assignment and keep the student engaged. So if they want to learn more of this or they fall behind, they can access it through that. And on our side of the house, we say flexibility is better because with printed module, students learn at their own pace due to online only. With the internet issue, will only cause stress and frustration, which will promote like dropout rate and stuff. And the post-pandemic education reform in ASEAN, there's also a policy as well. Like, due to massive learning loss and dropout risk, it applies a contextualized solution and flexible learning option tailored to each country capability rather than top-down compulsory model. There are also like extra class for those students who actually want to learn as well. So I would say that our side of the house solved this problem better, even to the poor and to the rural, unprivileged student. So proud to oppose again.
Thank you, judges, for asking the question and debater for answering the question. We now open the floor to our audience for questions and comments. Please make sure that the question is no longer than 15 seconds, and debater, you may respond in 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, my question is for the government. So may I know what exactly is your plan towards students with disabilities that may have a hard time to actually adapt to distance learning? Is that clear?
I'll start. Okay. Thank you so much for the question. So, let me just share the point of view of our government. So, our government sees crisis as an opportunity to fast-track and also to future-proof our ASEAN member states' education systems. Your situation is a very unique situation in which that it limits off. There's several limitations involved, and it prevents education. It prevents quality education from reaching the rights of our students. So, hence, with that, I feel that there's not a one-size solution to fit all. But I feel that with the integration of AI, so for example, for people with disabilities, right, we could implement some chatbot that could enhance their learning. And but I feel that in terms of the learning for our students, we still need a figure, or we still need a person physically involved with them. Hence, we feel that the best person to do so will be their parents. We can also involve non-profit organizations such as NGOs, and also collaborate with public-private partnerships in order to find ways and solutions that we could help them. For example, if they need a laptop, we can cap them at a subsidy price, or if they need certain books that is tailored to them. For example, so those books with textiles, or like a bigger computer, a bigger laptop, a bigger keyboard to suit their learning needs in order for them to succeed. To sum up, the government wants to instill the sense of urgency and adopt and the ability to change. Because let's talk in real life. Another pandemic could happen at any time again, and we want to be prepared for it to happen. And we understand the social challenges are real, but we feel that there will always be a short-term solution to fix this, as a pandemic or a crisis is not really it will end eventually. Hence, we feel that less education is still worse, and we want to prioritize education to make it accessible and of quality learning to all our students across all ASEAN member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you to both teams for an enlightening debate on this important issue. May I now invite the proposition and opposition team to the center of the stage for a handshake as a gesture of a mutual respect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have to keep this on.